This week has seen some really interesting stuff in the world of creative AI. Today, I have some pretty big advancements from Adobe, Runway ML, and Vidu. Plus, I've got a breakdown on one of the most impressive AI animations we have seen to date. Okay, lots to cover. Let's dive in. Kicking off with a fantastic AI animation, this is RŌHKI. It's a 12-minute narrative short that heavily utilizes AI tools, many of which we talk about on the channel all the time. I've talked to the RŌHKI gang over the last couple of days, and this is going to be a bit of an odd breakdown, but please do stick with it because there's some news about how you can accomplish something like this no matter what your technical skill level is. So RŌHKI is a project that was developed by 3 musicians. You can kind of think of it as like a guerrillas type thing. Like this is narrative world building around their work. The guys are running in stealth right now, so it's all a little bit cloak and dagger, but apparently they are fans of the channel, so I was able to pester them with some questions. So the majority of RŌHKI is, as many of you have guessed, video to video. They ended up utilizing a model that they trained up, ran through Comfy UI. I know Comfy can get pretty overwhelming, so you can kind of think of this as like the overall stylization pass that we've seen in things like Domo or Kyber. But again, using Comfy UI, they were able to train the output to a very tuned look. In terms of motion capture, the gang utilized Wonder Dynamic. Yeah, remember Wonder Dynamic? They were, to my knowledge at least, the first video capture to 3D character technology around, so it was actually nice to hear them in use. The Wonder Dynamic motion was then taken over and rigged up to a 3D model. Now, I know a lot of you are probably like zoning out right now as soon as you heard 3D model. But what's funny is that for episode 2, the team is just going to bypass the 3D model aspect of it and going to be running essentially a modified version of Viggle. Yeah, that Viggle. According to them, going the Viggle route not only yielded better outputs, but was, obviously much faster as well. That said, going back to episode 1, the 3D model at that point was then green screened and taken through a stylization pass. And then that green screen element was then comped in and then, further color graded. The background is 3D generated. And that's when the team jumped up from 3 people to 6 people, which again, that's doubling it, but that's still a very small team. The city background was created in 3D in Blender, while a few other shots were created in Unreal. But I did want to mention that in case you were seeing this and sort of overwhelmed, I am still terrible with 3D, and if you are too, I did want to mention that you could utilize the Skyglass app to much the same effect, as it also uses Unreal. I did a whole video on that, link down below, but moving back over to RŌHKI, the last kind of sort of polish element, especially on this like sunset walking scene, I initially thought was some After Effects work, but talking with them, it surprisingly, or maybe just surprising me, DaVinci Resolve, the free video editing suite that every Premiere Pro user says they're going to switch to next week. But ultimately, what I think RŌHKI really showcases is what is in our grasp right now. You can use both Viggle and Domo, or even the aforementioned Skyglass, to accomplish something pretty similar. And if you want even more fine-tuned results, you can learn Comfy. And look, I know that Comfy can be really daunting in terms of even from the beginning of how do I even install this thing? In my previous video on OpenArt.ai, they actually have a cloud-based version of Comfy that you can use for free. I think it serves as a great playground to get your feet on the ground and kind of at least conceptually understand what the whole thing is all about. And finally, in good news, if you're someone that's like, I really don't want to learn Comfy, I really don't feel like dealing with Viggle and Domo either, the RŌHKI guys have teamed up with a company called iCore, where they're developing a platform with a very uncomplicated UI where you can use the workflows that RŌHKI develops. We'll find out more about that as it develops, and I'll be able to share sort of more production details on all of this when episode 2 comes out, which I think is in 4 to 6 weeks. In the meantime, you can check out the full RŌHKI episode 1. It is linked down below. Moving on, Adobe have announced Firefly video, and it looks pretty good. This is something that they teased a while back with integration into Premiere Pro. That part isn't quite here yet. What we're talking about right now is just the web version, so that will act a little bit like Runway, where you will prompt, generate, and then download. The model not only does text to video, but it also does image to video, all of which is at least presumably trained off of Adobe stock videos. So I don't have access to it yet. Funny enough, I was actually supposed to get access to it, but the email that I got, I thought was a scam. So a public apology to Cindy. You are not a scammer. I am just overly paranoid. In the meantime, let's take a look at some outputs generated by users who were not quite as sussy as I was. From Chris Castanova, we have some image to video examples. Yeah, I think this all looks pretty solid. This shot showcasing, imagination. What I really like about this is that as it zooms in, as the eyes open, the eyes look really, really nice. Yeah, there you go. A really nice surrealistic tracking shot here. Very much feels in line with some of the stuff that we've seen out of Gen 3. I did notice one thing there. Now, I don't know how raw this output is, but there does look like there is a bit of a stutter right here. So I don't know if that indicates that there is an extension feature in Firefly video. A lot of the examples that I've seen seem to be around the 5-second mark. So I don't know if that is, essentially the current limit of Firefly video. Chris also provides us this other image to video. This is kind of more in line with a lot of the stuff that we on the channel do. So that's, kind of an AI generated image, the prompt, turn around and walk away. So yeah, looking pretty solid. I do think that things are going to get really interesting when you're able to do this natively within Premiere. Remember earlier how I was saying that every Premiere Pro user is like a week away from ditching and going over to DaVinci? This is the kind of stuff that keeps me on Premiere. Overall though, looking pretty good. I will reach out to Adobe to see if I can get access to bring you a fuller test. The subject line of that email will be, "Sorry, Cindy." Next up, Vidu or Vidu, I'm still not sure which, another tool that I have just recently taken a look at, have introduced a new feature. It's reference image to video. It's pretty interesting. So Vidu was already doing consistent characters in text to video if provided with a reference image, something that I actually had a lot of success with. This appears to be kind of the next iteration of that, taking not only a character reference, but an overall style reference as well. The overall idea here is that you would be able to upload an image, say, again, a stuffed cat here in this example, and then generate videos and consistently have that cat and consistently maintain the same overall style for the backgrounds. A few more examples, obviously a photorealistic style here. We also have animals with a photo of a Cocker Spaniel. It's a very good dog. And they also provided some examples of animated characters. And that's something that I'm pretty interested in, namely because I think that a lot of times when you run animated type images in video generators, you will see them kind of morph into live action things. So heading over to Vidu to see how this holds up. I unfortunately ended up burning through all of my credits in our previous look at Vidu, so I was only able to get a couple of generations off. But I'm gonna go with our girl, Daniela Van de Donk, dressed as a pirate. The result was a bit of a mixed bag. I did prompt here for her to be walking through a pirate town at sunset. We definitely did get that, although it did lose any of the sort of anime-ish qualities that the original image has. Overall, I think it definitely does kind of at least hold, the characteristics of the character. There is definitely one aspect of the character that, Vidu was like, I got you on this one. Camera movement all look fine, though there is a lot of like wonkiness and smudge basically happening here. But just to try something out with definitely much more of an animated look to it, I fed Vidu this image in an animated style of Batman and gave it the prompt action shot of Batman in a crime alley. We ended up getting this, which admittedly is also kind of a mess. It sort of just looks like Batman is kind of doing interpretive dance here. But to its credit, it did hold on much closer to that animated style. That said, I do think that there is like something here. It just bears further testing. Unfortunately, again, I ran out of credits. Vidu does offer 80 credits every month. So if you guys want to give it a shot, let me know what's working for you down in the comments below. Rounding out with a look at what Runway ML has been cooking. This is from their research project lab. And since they're releasing teases of these, this might be getting close to release. It at least gives us a very good idea of where the platform is headed. So starting off with their world builder, this one is kind of angled more at the marketing side of things. Although, looking at this, I think that you can see that it could very easily be translated into narrative concepts as well. With a simple prompt, we have everything from brand colors, imagery begins generating, and then with, one click, obviously you can then animate those images. Possibly of more interest to, our crowd, there's the Cinema UI feature as well, which, looks to essentially build videos based off of a prompt. Details are a bit scant on this one. I mean, it's only a 15-second teaser video. And again, this may not be the final UI. This is just stuff that they're working on. But, with the prompt, a short film about a crab, you have like an option that's like, crab color, because it identifies the subject. Now, how that would work with, say, like a man in a blue business suit, do I get to choose the shade of blue that he's wearing? I'm not sure. They also showcased a feature called Mashup, where you could take two images and then generate a video that blends both of those ideas together. Yeah, this one works out pretty well, although I can also see it generating up some really horrific monstrosities as well. But the one that I think everyone is going to be most interested in is Snap Edit, which is basically video in painting, although it's working a lot differently than we had previously seen with Motion Brush. Now, again, this is from the research lab, so I don't necessarily know if this is going to be the final version of video in painting, or even when we're going to get any kind of Motion Brush controls in Gen 3. But I can see Smart Selection being A, a lot more accurate, and B, a lot less frustrating than motion brushes. Remember when we had like 6 motion brushes and your canvas would look like a clown holding a bag of Skittles like exploded on it? No word on when any of these features will release, but overall I think it just really gives you a good idea of where Runway's headspace is for Gen 3. So overall, yeah, a really cool week of awesome developments in the world of creative AI. As always, I thank you for watching. My name is Tim.